Republicans buy sneakers too. It's the old Michael Jordan line from going on a generation ago. And Patrick Mahomes is proving that he is this generation's Michael Jordan. Not just on the field, where he's racked up multiple Super Bowls and Super Bowl MVPs and regular season MVPs, but also with how he's handling his politics in a very tumultuous time. So yesterday morning, Donald Trump gave a shout out to Patrick Mahomes and his wife, more so his wife, after she got caught up in some of the controversy in recent weeks of liking a Donald Trump Instagram post. I know.
How dare you?
You just can't do that. You just can't do that, as I say, with my tongue planted firmly in my cheek in 2024. You can't possibly do such a thing. So there was some outrage over that. But to Brittany Mahomes' credit, she stood firm. So after Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris, I know, who saw that coming, right? Shocker. A couple of nights ago after the debate, Donald Trump is on Fox and Friends yesterday morning, and he's asked about it. Now, here's the thing for Donald Trump. He goes, you know what? Yeah, we saw it coming. I like the other guy anyway.
Finish up on that point then.
By the way, Lawrence is doing a very good job, I have to say. He really is.
He's doing a great. Hey, I've got a quick question for you. Out of nowhere, after the debate last night, Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris. What do you think?
Well, I actually like Mrs. I actually like Mrs. Mahomes much better, if you want to know the truth.
I think he was actually looking for the name there for a second. I think he had a bit of a brain fart. But either way, he came around to it. He got around to it. And he goes, I like Mrs. Mahomes better. Right? That's what you heard from Donnie last night.
I think Randy Mahomes would also take it, though.
Randy think so. Him. Yes. Patrick's mother, based on some social media posts, appears to be a big fan of Donald Trump's. So with that being said, Patrick Mahomes, of course, gets asked about this yesterday at his press conference here in town. And local media, they really picked, they really prodded, they really tried to get him to say something to put Donald Trump back in his place. And, well, he was not taking their bait whatsoever.
Former President Trump referenced you and your family again today on Fox News in relation to his campaign. I just wonder what your reaction is to seeing that.
Yeah, I think I've always said I don't want my place and my platform to be used to endorse a candidate or do whatever. Either way, I think my place is to inform people to get registered to vote. It's to inform people to do their own research and then make their best decision for them and their family. And so I think that's every time I'm on this stage and I get asked these questions, I'm going to refer back to that because I think that's what makes America so great.
Again, dare I say? Can I complete that sentence for him? But anyway, that's the perfect answer from Patrick Mahomes. But the media wasn't done with him there. They weren't. Nope. They had to continue to say, but he brought up your wife.
Patrick, do you have a thought specifically about the idea of President Trump bringing up Brittany's name? Does that affect you one way or another?
No, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's about me and my family and how we treat other people. And I think you see is that Brittany does a lot in the community. I do a lot in the community to help bring people up and give people other opportunities to use their voice. And so it's in the political times, people are going to use stuff here and there. But I can't let that affect how I go about my business every single day and live my life and try to live it to the best of my ability.
That's the answer that every athlete should give. Every one of them. Now, for many of them, they can't help themselves. Of course, we all know that. But that's the answer they should be giving. If they're actually interested in building a brand that goes beyond sports and goes beyond politics. And in their case, they should be. They need to appeal to everybody. Patrick Mahomes knows that at Arrowhead Stadium this Sunday against the Bengals, that place is going to be filled with a majority of Donald Trump voters. That's what the data would overwhelmingly suggest. I'm not polling all 76,000. I'm just using a little bit of common sense. He gets it. He understands that, first off, nobody in Kansas or Missouri is going to be moved and be like, I was really all in for Donald Trump, but then my favorite quarterback said I should vote for Kamala Harris. So I might do that. Or the reverse, right? There is nobody in Kansas City who's like a diehard Democrat who was like, Mahomes has some points. I think I'll go vote for Donald Trump. They don't move the needle, especially in this climate, like some people think that they do. It's why the Taylor Swift thing came out. And by the way, I was dead wrong. I didn't think she'd endorse, so I owned it yesterday. I didn't think she'd go there. She did. So rip on me all you want. I'm fine with it. I can take it. I'm a big boy. You can give me a hard time at 913-408-7957, whatever you want to do. But I didn't think she'd endorse just because I thought she was smarter than that as a business person. And realized that, in the end, who's really moving their vote in this 50-50 country because of me? Is there any Taylor Swift fan, or is just doubling down on what a large percentage of the Swifties wanted her to do when, by the way, they were all going to go run and vote for Kamala Harris anyway? So what are we really doing here? Get a little love out of it, I suppose, in some places, but it really isn't swaying anybody who's sitting there on the fence right now. So that's why I thought she wouldn't go there. But then I realized, you know what? When you're a billionaire, what do you have to lose? Seriously. What do you have to lose? Losing a percentage of your fans, does it really matter if you're a billionaire? Probably not. But when you see what Patrick Mahomes did yesterday, what he said yesterday at his press conference, the clinic that he put on behalf of athletes all over the country, that's one of those videos that, they do the rookie symposiums and the NFL, the NBA, all the different leagues do this. I would play that video for guys and say, hey, when you think you're getting big time and they try to rope you in the politics, here's your answer, John.
Compare and contrast Tyreek Hill's video.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that's a... don't even get me started.
Hey, how to do it. How not to do it.
How not to do it. Tyreek Hill, you can really say that about them personally as well. Patrick Mahomes, one wife, third kid on the way. Tyreek Hill, what are we up to? 10 kids? 7 women? 6? I don't know. Mark, you're in charge of that. What's the answer?
5 women, 10 kids.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I was off by a couple.
I think only one wife.
Yeah, I think so too.
But
I had the kids right. I knew he almost had his own football team.
But Patrick's averaging 3 kids per woman. And Tyreek's only at 2. What's wrong with you?
Oh, man. I am so proud that we've got this guy representing this team in this town at this time. I saw from X yesterday, Clay Travis. He's a nationally syndicated radio guy. He's on Fox News all the time, old sports talk guy, who I actually saw last week in D.C., and he goes, unlike the Tom Brady Patriots dynasty, I can't hate the Chiefs. I just can't. They have stuck it back in the face of most woke nonsense in this country compared to other teams, and it has been, boy, a lot of fun to watch. By just going apolitical on most things and even skewing to the right on some things. Whether it's Harrison Butker, whether it's the punter, the list goes on. They are putting their money where their mouth is. 913-408-7957, 613 on a Thursday morning on KCMO. Glad you're with us. Speaking of the debate from the other night with Donald Trump, Kansas City was involved in a number that I didn't expect to see when the ratings came out yesterday on this. We'll tell you what that was next on 95.7 FM KCMO. Cracking the top 10 for ratings for the debate on Tuesday night. The numbers came in yesterday, and the top 10 markets for the debate included Kansas City. Despite the fact that we obviously do not have a swing state on either side of our state line. Say that one 10 times in a row. Swing state on either side of our state line. But we were with Pittsburgh. Okay, that makes sense. Philadelphia, number 2, where the debate was, major swing area. They each did a 44 and 43 share, respectively. West Palm Beach, Trump's hometown now, did a 43 share. Minneapolis, they're invested now with Coach Walls, as they call him, Coach. Milwaukee, swing city, of course, swing state. 38 share. Detroit, Michigan, swing state, 37 share. Now, New York, 37 share in New York City. Kansas City, right there with them, 37 share. And then St. Louis and Providence rounding out the top 10. So Kansas City and St. Louis, neither of our cities are swing states on either side of the state line for Illinois or for Kansas, of course, over here. But I guess we've got nothing better to do than watch these two goobers get up on a stage and give their word salads and not say much meaningful. I suppose that's what it means. I don't know what else to make of it, John.
We had watch parties, right? We carried it on the radio.
Yeah.
We had some media saturation in the market for sure.
Yeah, maybe we should take some credit. 36.7 share in Kansas City for the debate the other night. That's pretty damn impressive. I figured Pennsylvania, Wisconsin would have some of the top markets, but Kansas City in the top 10. So credit to us, credit to you for being informed. We are an informed town here around Kansas City, watching the debate, even though we full well know how our states are going to break. Missouri and Kansas will both vote for Donald Trump coming up on November 5. Now, that doesn't mean that Kansas City proper will. It doesn't mean that Johnson County will. But it means that for now, we're engaged, and that's why you're here on KCMO 95.7 FM. Now, what about the undecideds? I thought this was interesting. New York Times had this piece after the debate that they published yesterday afternoon, and the headline was, Pundits said Harris won the debate. Undecideds weren't so sure. And that's why I'm reading this from the New York Times. I'm not reading this from Fox or, Daily Wire or Breitbart or something like that. I'm reading this from Fox News. From the New York Times. They write here, for weeks, undecided voters have been asking for more substance. So it was perhaps no accident that VP Harris and her first words during the presidential debate on Tuesday were, I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan. Well, writes the New York Times, some Americans might mean more convincing. Bob and Sharon Reed, both 77-year-old retired teachers who live on a farm in central Pennsylvania, had high hopes for the debate between Harris and Trump. They thought they would come away with a candidate to support in November. But Ms. Reed said, quote, it was all so disappointing. The couple ended the night wondering how the costly programs each candidate supported, Donald Trump's tariffs and Kamala Harris's aid to young families and small businesses, would help a couple like them living on a fixed income that has not kept pace with inflation. They said they didn't hear the detailed answers on immigration or foreign policy either. So the article goes on to note that most of the undecideds that the New York Times has been talking to and tracking are still undecided. Now, that's a good thing for Donald Trump because he had a bad debate and a bad night. So this is anecdotal, but still it's telling that the New York Times published this. And it's telling that if you read the story, the main takeaway here from many of their undecided people is that they don't know what to do. They might be even more confused than they were prior to Tuesday night. I believe that actually helps Donald Trump. Because if he's not seriously damaged amongst undecideds in the wake of Tuesday night, then, man, there's only one direction he can go coming out of that deal, and that's up. He can reset the narrative, and he's set to have a press conference tomorrow in Los Angeles at his golf course out there. He can reset the narrative tomorrow. But the fact that he missed the number of opportunities that he missed, and the New York Times writing pieces like undecideds didn't come away thinking Kamala Harris won that debate, or Kamala Harris got the edge after that debate, that says a lot. That says that they're so disenfranchised with Joe Biden and the last 3.5 years that they're still wanting to give Donald Trump the chance. They're still wanting to have a reason to put him back in the White House. Can Trump give him that reason? He didn't on Tuesday, and that's where you say it still was a massively missed opportunity. On the issue of immigration, on the economy, even on the economy, I thought Trump had himself a very good first half hour, as we talked a lot about yesterday. But the first words out of his mouth on the economy were tariffs, which of all of Donald Trump's policy plans, he's got great ones. That's probably his worst. Because the American people don't like the word. They're afraid of the word. And it's not the thing that's going to make or break this economy if he does get back in office. And then on immigration, the fact that the name Laken Riley never came out of his mouth is still one of the most stunning things to me from that night. But don't worry, we did get to the Haitian migrants eating dogs or something like that. But not the name Laken Riley. I mean, just a stunning misstep when you look back on that debate on Tuesday night. What the American people needed to hear from him. Many of the things that you and I talk about that we know, that we've covered over the last several months, they didn't hear. Instead, they heard about an internet rumor that has not yet been confirmed in any meaningful way. And I know many of you emailed me yesterday a video from Ohio that's not Springfield. That person is an Ohio citizen, and it's not what you think it is. No matter who sends it to you, you got to just do 2 minutes of research, and you'll get that information. But even if it was true, I don't know about you, but I think human lives matter more than dog lives. That's the other part of it that makes absolutely no sense to me. But the positive thing is this. It may not have moved the needle either way. And when the New York Times is willing to admit that, when the New York Times can sit there and write a piece and say, oh, undecideds haven't really moved, that tells you all you need to know about where we're at right now and where we head the next 50-plus days towards November 5. Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio as we approach the bottom of the hour here on KCMO. Also, this is interesting, a new Pew poll shows that Kamala Harris's support amongst Jewish voters is the lowest for a Democrat since Dukakis in 1988, only getting 65% of the vote. That would be a 36-year low for Democrats, while Republicans also gain amongst black voters, Hispanic voters, and Jewish voters. So that's the real deal. That is something to watch, and it will play a role coming up here on November 5. The mayor of Kansas City found himself in tears this week. In a moment at the Board of Police Commissioners meeting that there's just been a lot going on, obviously, debate. You got Taylor Swift endorsing Kamala Harris. I saw she had VMAs last night. There's just a lot happening in this town as well that might have overshadowed this. But Quentin Lucas was at the Board of Police Commissioners meeting that they have every month, and he got choked up, and he had to walk off the podium when he started talking about the hundreds of homicides that have happened on his watch as the mayor in this town. And it dovetails off of something that he said last week. Here was the mayor of Kansas City, Quentin Lucas, who, by the way, will be on the show in 1 hour.
Make a final point because these things do matter to me. You know, since I've been mayor, probably more than 600 people in this city have lost their life to homicide, some of which we remember. And my second day as mayor, we had a young woman who was shot. You call those stray bullets, even though I don't necessarily see them as stray, in the Crossroads area. And we all got together and we all said, we got to do something. And that was a very young defendant, by the way, 18 years old. It pains me greatly that we still have teenagers that are involved in this type of activity, often teenagers who have been involved in activity for some time. And so I'm not saying we're going to shirk our responsibility to get 911 calls answered, build a detention center, hire enough officers to do it. We're everybody here, for people watching, we're all going to do our job. There is a bigger challenge in this community with what's happening. I'm good with our teenagers. That's all I got. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't have any comments.
That one of his fellow commissioners there. I can't add to that. I'm good. So what you can't see is the mayor walking off as he gets choked up at the end, talking about, in his words, the larger problem that we have with our teenagers. Now, I've seen a lot of people post on social media and say, well, that was phony. He's just playing a Kamala Harris's team. He's trying to get a job in D.C. Well, I think the mayor has aspirations. He may want to work for Kamala Harris. I don't think he's George Clooney. I don't think he's capable of crying on the spot in that moment. I don't. Maybe some of you want to give him more credit. I don't think he's an A-list actor. I thought that was genuine.
I would tend to agree with him, but we've been, we've talked with him for 5 years?
Yes.
6 years on a fairly weekly basis. So if that were in his repertoire, he would have pulled it out by now.
Yes, we would have seen that by now. Exactly. I don't think he has the ability to just cry on the spot like he did. I believe there's a realization there from the mayor that mistakes have been made and that he has made mistakes. And that while he is not going to come on this show or do a press conference and say, yeah, I really screwed the pooch a couple of years ago in 2020. I got caught up in all the left-wing chaos, defund the police, cops, need a reckoning, and we've got to revamp the industry and all this nonsense, and also on COVID, and realize, boy, our young people, especially in urban communities, got absolutely destroyed by the COVID and defund the police policies. It made communities far less safe. And then when you tie in the fact that COVID had kids in vulnerable situations, not in the classrooms, when oftentimes the school is the most normal part of their day, the safest part of their day, the part of the day they need to stay off the streets, right? We're not talking about suburbia here. We're talking about the urban core where these kids are in very vulnerable situations. They need school. They need that structure. I mean, all kids do to some extent, but especially in some of those hard-hit, underprivileged communities. And you combine those two things, and suddenly you've got yourself a situation where 4 years later, you've got late teens committing heinous acts of violence. Not just killing each other, but killing people like Sean Brady. The guy who was, of course, the late owner of Brady and Fox in Brookside. And we all know what happened there a couple of weeks ago. His car is getting burglarized. He comes outside. He tries to interrupt it. And as he's interrupting it, a teenager allegedly shoots and kills him. So there's this weird realization, I think, happening in part for Quentin Lucas, and he's seeing it in real time. He also knows, and he said as much this week on the show last week, fathers need to be present. Fathers need to be in the picture. And that is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, the mayor of Kansas City has ever said on this show. It hasn't been a policy issue. It hasn't been some grandiose plan for the city. It was, we need fathers in these kids' lives. And he is saying that, Quentin Lucas, as a black man who did not have his own father in his life. But by the way, he beat the odds. He went to Cornell. He went to WashU. He's now a father of 2 kids, and whatever you think of his politics, he seems to be a decent family man, so good for him for that. A lot of the things that Barack Obama could have said to transform this country, but wimped out on. Now, Quentin Lucas, I know he calls himself the Aldi brand Obama. His words don't carry the meaning that Barack Obama's would have while he was in office because he got too caught up in the partisan politics, but it's a step in the right direction, and that's what you got to give him. And in the meantime, we still have this crime issue permeating Kansas City. I saw this on Instagram yesterday. Kate has sent this to me. A coffee shop that we used to like when we were living downtown, Mildred's. They've got 2 spots. They've got one on 9th Street, and then they have another one in the Crossroads District down off Southwest Boulevard. I believe it's their Southwest Boulevard location, not right there, but it's off Wyandotte Street, that got hit with burglars. They shared it on their Instagram page. They have a picture of the front of their coffee shop, and it says, "Our glass may be broken, but our coffee is strong." And they write here on Instagram, "It's hard to believe, but our store was broken into less than 1 week after our downtown store had their break-in. It's astounding how much this is happening all around Kansas City. Let's hope change is on the way." That was written on Mildred's Instagram page yesterday. So a week after their downtown location gets hit, their Crossroads location gets hit. I mean, you can't stop this stuff. And then people rip on Todd from Strips Chicken in Waldo because he decided, I got to get up and go. No, you've got to run a business. And it's getting harder to run a business in Kansas City with these criminals running wild. John?
It's not hard to believe, unfortunately, using her words, not necessarily against her, but no, it's not hard to believe.
It's not.
It's not astounding that it happened that soon. And you got to do more than hope.
Yes.
Change is coming.
Yes, you have to do more than just, don't worry, it's coming. Really? You electing a new prosecutor? What are you doing? Jim's in Kansas City. He's first up on KCMO. Jim, good morning. What's happening?
Morning, Pete. Hey, don't be fooled by this act. I mean, this is a skit. Now, look, this guy, I'm so heartfelt now. But, and he stated from the first time he got into office, we're losing all these lives and stuff like that, Well, if that's the case, why would he be the point man on ushering in, filing a lawsuit to go against the increase in police funding?
Mm-hmm.
But, right, if he's so heartfelt and he just all of a sudden got the waterworks going, that poor guy, it's been laboring him all this time. Was he thinking about that when he was trying to handicap the police? What's going on here?
Listen, I totally see what you're saying there, Jim. I do. I think two things can be true at once in this case. The mayor, who was overseeing the deadliest stretch in Kansas City history, is genuinely upset with what has been going on in this town, while still not fully understanding, although I think coming around, but not fully understanding what needs to happen to turn things around, or not being willing to admit what needs to happen to turn things around. 913-4087-95.7. Randy is on KCMO. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, you mentioned the mayor was talking about, in the bigger picture of it. When our forefathers set this country up, they asked what they had given us, and they said a republic if you can keep it. But it's wholly inadequate for an immoral people. Right now, we've got the Republicans and the Democrats in politics pulling both parties towards some form of immorality instead of quitting the tugging on our arms and say, folks, we're going to have to get our acts together. It's not about the police. It's not about, the crime and the this and the that. It's actually about the immorality that's permeated our society.
Yeah, that's at its very core. You're right about that, Randy. I mean, that takes years, if not decades, to turn around. In the meantime, all you can do as a society, from a political standpoint or just a policy perspective, is make sure you're at least trying to scare criminals by arresting them and putting them in prison. But you're right. The morality is in a very rotten place right now, and we get the leaders we deserve, whether it's at county commission, mayor, or president. 913-408-7957. Good morning. It's great to be here. 6:45 on a Thursday on KCMO Talk Radio. So yesterday we got an inflation number that came out, and today we're going to get a producer price index number. That'll come out at 7:30. So we'll have all that for you next hour when that news does come out here on KCMO 95.7 FM. But local media likes to kind of jump on this as well and try to make a local story out of these national stories, and that's part of what we do here on KCMO as well. So the inflation number came in yesterday at 2.5%. This is for the month of August. So when you look at that number, that is the slowest pace in 3.5 years, since early 2021. Inflation's not coming down. The Fed's target is for 2% inflation, so it's still higher than the target. But obviously, 2.5% inflation is better than 3.5, 4, whatever. It's a small win in what has been a bad 3-year number. But inflation compounds, right? So it's 2.5 on top of the 6%, on top of the 10%. That's how you get to this 20+% number of inflation the last 3.5 years. Nothing's coming down, just to be very clear. Any headline saying inflation's down is either being pushed by somebody who's not aware of how inflation works or somebody who is just trying to basically pull one over on you. but it's not increasing as quickly as it was. It's like saying, hey, 3 years ago I weighed 200 pounds. Then I got, up to 220. I was really stacking on some weight. Then you got up to 230 pounds, and now you're 235 pounds and you want a round of applause. It's like, no, you're 35 pounds more than you were 3 years ago. You only put on 5 pounds this year. Wow, congratulations. What do you want, a medal? So, that's how inflation works. So locally at Woke 41 in particular, they did a report on how housing costs are continuing to be very high. And they're right about that. That's one of the big pushers, unfortunately, of inflation the last couple of years has been rents and just housing costs across the board. So take a listen to how Woke 41 covers this here locally last night with their piece.
Now, housing, an item I like to watch for us here in Kansas City. Minimal movement month over month. But
Hold on, stop right there. Minimal movement month over month. The inflation number for housing month over month was 0.4%. That's a big number month over month. Like, not year over year, month over month, 0.4%. Stack that up, right? You're talking 5% year over year. Most people are not seeing 5% pay raises year over year, so that's pretty substantial, 0.4% month over month. But anyway, let's continue.
We look at the year over year numbers, 5.2% jump year over year. I talked to renters living in Hyde Park who say that this number right here, the year over year jump, is what they're feeling when the first of the month comes around. In 2020, 23% of renters were spending more than 50% of their monthly income on housing, and costs have only gone up since.
I think they're kind of going up a little too high.
While Consumer Price Index numbers out this week show a cool down in many categories, rent is up more than 5% year over year.
I definitely believe that because it's showing on my paycheck.
Graduate student Kumar Swami Adaraju says he shares a one-bedroom apartment with a friend to keep costs down.
For one, it's too high.
Hunter says he makes sacrifices in other areas, hoping the basics like housing see cost plateau soon. Another item to watch, the Federal Reserve is expected to cut interest rates at its meeting next week. Woo! I report on consumer issues like these, so if you have a story idea you'd like me to look into.
All right, that's good. That's plenty. I'm good. You get the point. So they brag about how, hey, inflation's coming down. Then they go talk to some people here in Kansas City who are like, yeah, the rent's too damn high. It's like that guy from New York City who ran for mayor like 15 years ago. The rent is too damn high. The rent is too damn high. That guy was a viral sensation when going viral just became a thing. He was the man. So housing costs are, yes, crushing people still. Food costs are crushing people. Gas is down 10% year over year. That's great, but still up significantly from where it was 3.5 years ago. So the American people are struggling. So, yeah, we might get a slight rate cut this month, and that's good. But I'm looking at it, and I'm saying, okay, where have we been? 2.5% for August. Okay, last August, we were at 3.7, so 2.5, 3.7. Go back to August of 2022, and you're looking at 8.3. And then you go back to August of 21, 5.3. So let me take 10 seconds out and just do this math real quick with you here, and you can help me with it. Maybe you've got it before 7 a.m. You're all sharp. You've drank your coffee. 5.3 plus 8.3 plus 3.7 plus now 2.5. 19.8, 20%. There's your number over the last 3 years. Tom's in Overland Park. Hey, Tom, good morning. You're on KCMO.
Good morning, Pete. Thanks for having me. Sorry, long time no speak. But I've called in multiple times about this topic of inflation, and I just got to say the debate last night infuriated me when Trump illuminates that gas, rent, food, everything is high, and the cackling hyena is just laughing it off. She's so disconnected from normal people. In 2019, my then girlfriend and now wife and I purchased our house. We make almost the same level of income as we did back then, a little bit more. But inflation today and interest rates, we would not be able to buy the same house and be first-time home buyers in 2024.
Absolutely right. Absolutely, Todd. That is
real people.
Yes, real people are hurting, man.
Impacted by this.
Yes.
are hurting. And as these cackling liars are telling our eyes are lying to us about not just inflation, but pets that really are being killed by migrants. So, Kamala, our eyes are not lying to us. We see everything.
They're not. I mean, the pet thing has not yet been confirmed, just so we got that out in the open there, Todd, right? But I see your point, and there's no doubt. I mean, I look at my own home. If I had to buy it today, where it's up 30% from where it was 5 years ago, with interest rates where they are, probably wouldn't be in it. Question is, did Trump sell himself enough? And he still didn't. I mean, the best thing he's got going for him is that the American people are feeling this 20% inflation. And to Todd's point, they know where they were back in 2019 and what they felt back in 2019. But did Trump effectively sell himself on it and sell that message to the American people 2 nights ago? Goodness gracious, no. Not at all. And that's what's frustrating, just because as an American citizen that wants to see this country turn around, I don't want it to be all that close on November 5. Steve is in Baldwin. He is first up after talking to Mayor Lucas. What's up, Steve? Good morning.
Hey, how you doing this morning, Pete?
I'm doing well, my man. What's happening?
So here, after listening to him, and I listen to your show every morning on my way to work, this whole, God, I'm going to call it a misnomer. There is no incentive for, I heard Quentin Lucas say, focus on fathers, male role models, X, Y, and Z. But there's no incentive really in our society, at least in America today, to keep a nuclear family unit together. I tried with my kids as mother. I know you're a married man, you have your kids and what have you, but there's absolutely no incentive. And when these women, have these kids and they make the choice to, one, think that they're worth the top 1% when it comes to a man, but they're choosing the bottom 10%, then we have to rely back on, okay, all right, if you're a mom and you're a single mom and you can do this, then do it. And don't blame society because you can't pull it off when you continue to, let's say, have less than honorable or moral standards when it comes to your behavior behind a closed door. And
I think it's a two-way street. I mean, are there women of that belief? Yes, but there are a lot of guys who just walk away from their own kids as well.
Well, and we're also in a point in our society too that a lot of moms are starting to do it. And and I hate this in our society. I don't think it's good. I think that there's too many incentives to have a baby and then the government take care of it for you. And that makes it very easy. And I just think it all needs to stop. And I think if we probably, and I'm just going to say this, the elephant in the room, if we took away no-fault divorce, I think we'd be better off. I mean, that's just my opinion.
I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot to it. Is it partially, the government having incentives in place if you're a single parent, or allowing maybe generous benefits if you're a single parent? Absolutely. But I think we're also in this pagan social media age where guys just want to, chase girls and go on dating apps and act like fools. And, they're not thinking about anything beyond what they're doing that night, that day, and, who they're hooking up with and all that stuff too. So I really think it's a two-way street, to your point.
We are very much in a hookup culture. I mean, that's a given. With social media, TikTok, Instagram, all of it, we are.
Yeah.
And we've also listened to women for 30 or 40 years tell us, we don't need men. We're fine without them. We don't need them. We don't need them.
Mm-hmm.
And then these young men are being raised by women like that, so they don't know how to be men.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, it's not one gender. It's not one thing. It's everybody's fault. But here's the one part I would disagree with Steve on, when he said there's no incentive. I get what he's going for there, but the incentives are in the data. 85% of children who end up getting charged, after getting arrested, spending time, whether it's in a jail, a prison, or somewhere else, 85% of them come from single-parent families. That's a fact. Tammy's in Lenexa. Go ahead, Tammy. You're on KCMO.
Hey, good morning. I was just calling because something that Quentin Lucas said bothered me a little bit. He said that he went to church with his son, but that there was no picture, or he didn't publicize that, and yet he talks about the importance of church. Why not put a picture of him praying with his son or going to church with his sons out there as a role model?
I think we'll get there, Tammy. I'm going to be optimistic. Say maybe we'll get there. I mean, listen, the fact that he's come out in the last week and he's actually had this platform talking about the importance of fathers, especially black fathers, that's something I never thought I'd hear him say. So, I'm hopeful he will get there and not be thinking twice about posting a photo like that. I think that would be a very powerful picture to share with Kansas City. I agree.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Tammy and Shawnee, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Hi, this is Tammy from Shawnee.
Go ahead, Tammy. You're on the radio.
Oh, all right. Thank you. I just wanted to say that I disagree with not Tammy from Lenexa, but the other person that called earlier, because even though, as a citizen of the community, I think that it's our responsibility, I feel it, to help other families in my neighborhood and in my community. I grew up in a time where people just did that. It was just the right thing to do. You just pitched in, all the kids would be after school at someone's house playing and doing homework and those kinds of things. And moms and dads knew where their kids were. They were at the neighbor's house. But that kind of mentality seems to have left some of us. And, as a nation, we need to assume some responsibility for each other. And that means our children. We need to remember the children are the future of our nation. And it takes all of us in our schools, our churches, throughout the community, and scouting organizations and girl and boy organizations to help children to develop the principles, complement the principles that the parents are raising their children with, those values and virtues. And it sometimes does take more people than mom and dad. And there are children that don't have a mom or don't have a dad. So
all that is true. That is true. I'm up against it, Tammy. You're right, though. I mean, all that stuff matters, and part of that is the culture we live in. We live through our phones. The neighborly aspect of society has fallen by the wayside, and that has consequences. And we're seeing some of that play out in real time. And in certain neighborhoods, it's worse than others, right? In single-parent neighborhoods, that's going to have more of an impact. That's just the reality. And none of it's good for society. But, Quentin Lucas, I think his heart's in the right place on some of this, even though he and I may disagree on this. But he did make mistakes in 2020 and 2021 that have certainly not helped the situation here in Kansas City. New York Times running this headline: pundits said Harris won the debate. Undecided voters weren't so sure. They write here, voters said the vice president talked about a sweeping vision to fix the country's most stubborn problems, but they wanted the fine print. By the way, that's the New York Times injecting their bias into this news piece. The VP talked about a sweeping vision to fix the country's problems. What did they watch? Trust me, I've been critical of Trump. He had a bad night. But Kamala Harris had a sweeping vision? The first thing out of the gates, she gets asked about, hey, the economy. What are we going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? What's the answer? And there was none from Kamala Harris. There was nothing of note in her answer. It was, I grew up in a middle-class family, and we've got to help families, and we've got to get tax credits for cribs. Trust me, cribs are not my problem right now, as someone who has had a kid in a crib for the last nearly 6 years. I have one crib. I bought one crib once. You know what I have to buy every week? Food. Okay? The one-time crib purchase is not my problem, Kamala Harris.
Well, the price gouging, it's big baby.
Yeah. That's right. So they go on the note here, and they have been talking to undecided voters in various swing states. They did talk to folks who admit, yes, they had high hopes for the debate, and while Trump didn't meet their expectations, neither did Kamala Harris, because there was a lack of real policy positions. And as Donald Trump pointed out at the very end, and the only thing that Donald Trump should be saying for the next 50 days is what he said in his closing statements last night.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it?
That's it. And that was 2 nights ago, not last night. That's it. That's all I want to hear from the guy for the next 50 days. Where you been? Why haven't you done it? Literally, if there is a second debate, and I'm not convinced there will be, I said a week ago, Trump needs to give up his 2 minutes to Kamala Harris and say, everybody knows everything about me. Nobody is unclear on where they stand on me or my beliefs and my opinions. No one knows you. So out of respect for the American voter, since you're not doing sit-down interviews, you're not doing press conferences, I am going to give you my time to further talk to the American people about your vision for America. Now, that was my dream and my hope. Did I think that was ever going to happen? Goodness, no. I'm not stupid. I mean, I have been covering Trump for 8 years. I'm not an idiot. And I mean, not saying I'm the sharpest tool in the shed, but not an idiot. So I understand what was ultimately going to end up happening here. But every single thing this guy answers on the campaign trail or in any other debate going forward is, why haven't you done it? That's it. And as one undecided voter told CNN a couple of nights ago,
what did you see that brought you to a conclusion?
I think it's important to remember that we are voting for the leader of our country and not who we like the most or who we want in our wedding party, but who is actually going to make our country better. And we're in an incredibly unique situation where we've had both of the candidates in office before, and we've gotten to see what they would do. And when facts come to facts, my life was better when Trump was in office. The economy was higher, inflation was lower, things were better overall. And now with Kamala's administration, things haven't been so fantastic. And she's saying she can fix the problems that her administration has caused, but I just don't know if I can afford to take that risk.
And that has been a theme in this New York Times piece as well on undecided voters. They write here, a vast majority, 90% of likely voters nationwide, said in the New York Times poll that they pretty much know all they need to know about Donald Trump. The other 10% have been in a coma. Meantime, they write here, the euphoric scenes from the summer of Democrats celebrating Kamala Harris's entry into the race did not reflect the reality in many American homes. 28% of likely voters said in the latest New York Times Siena poll they felt they needed to know more about her. The biggest question on their minds, the poll found, was what her plans and policies would be. And as they go on to quote many folks who watched on Tuesday night, they didn't get the answers that they wanted. So that's a good thing for Donald Trump. That's a very good thing for him as we move into, the final home stretch here. The fact that at least anecdotally, and if the New York Times is publishing this, then that's notable as well. There are undecided voters who didn't feel like she answered enough of their questions on Tuesday night. That can be a win for him. And in large part, we know what Tuesday night was about. It was about Kamala Harris making sure that she can basically absolve herself from Joe Biden's 3.5 years while being like, Trump's the worst orange man to ever exist. And oh, by the way, he's a big man, big, mean, bad orange man, in case you didn't know. Did I mention he was a big, mean, bad orange guy? Have I mentioned that yet? And while that's effective for the MSNBC crowd, the people who actually want answers weren't nearly as impressed.